Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our virtual presentation for the 2020-2021 report to the community. I'd like to acknowledge that we, the DBDLI, are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. The territories of peace and friendship, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship covers this territory. We also acknowledge and request the presence of our ancestors whose teachings, strength, and perseverance continue to challenge and inspire our community to do better. This evening, we are pleased to update you on the initiatives, activities, and achievements of the DBDLI from the past fiscal year. Hopefully by now, you've had the opportunity to review the full report. If not, you can view the report as placed on our website, dbdli.ca. There are also some limited copies available for those who wish to have hard copies. This past fiscal year has been challenging as the pandemic forced us to adapt to a new normal. It has been particularly challenging for our African Nova Scotian communities. Our research shows that COVID-19 has disproportionately affected Black communities here in Nova Scotia and around North America. This further indicates the need for more robust policy measures and more attention given to our communities. The DBDLI intends to be the voice at the table representing our communities wherever possible, along with other like-minded organizations. That is why the DBDLI needs to continue engaging, supporting, and giving voice to our communities. We were not and will not let the pandemic stop us from doing this important work. The Ancestral Roots Summit, the Black Excellence Conferences, the African Nova Scotian Challenges, and our new docu-series honoring Viola Desmond are just some of the few examples of how the DBDLI connects with our communities. As always, we will continue to implement and explore new opportunities to improve the educational experiences for Nova Scotian learners of African ancestry and the broader community. This is indeed the DBDLI's mission. And now, we are in for a real treat. Our most recent staff addition, McEdward Jones, Manager of Finance, is not only talented with numbers, but he can also belt out quite a tune. So I'm pleased to welcome McEdward as he leads us in singing the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Thank you, Randy. That was, I hope I can live up to those words. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven rings, filled with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening sky. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. is in the rising sun of a new day began. Let us march on till victory is won.
Jocelyn Dorrington has led our organization since its inception in 2012. Her passion, expertise, and tenacity are largely why the DBDLI has continued to see successes today. So it is very bittersweet for me to announce that Jocelyn has stepped down as chair at the end of August this year. Unfortunately, Jocelyn is not able to join us this evening. However, she wrote a letter which I am pleased to share with you all today. Here's Jocelyn's letter. Greetings to all. I must give my regrets for not being able to attend the DBDLI's report to the community this year. However, I'm honored to be invited to be able to give a few remarks. First, I would like to express my deep honor and privilege to have had the opportunity to serve as chair of the DBDLI, to have worked with current and former board members, staff, community partners, and funders, and others. I thank you for your support, assistance, and collaboration throughout my tenure. You added to my learning and caused me to have a much deeper appreciation of the multiplicity of the many activities, initiatives undertaken by the DBDLI and its partners, as well as the complexities of the many environments in which the work unfolds. This has been a most humbling and deep felt experience for me, which will always be with me. The support from the community has been tremendous and has never wavered. This speaks volumes to how the staff and the board engaged with and responded to the needs of the community and its partners. Using an Afrocentric approach, being mindful and sensitive of the nuances of the multiple communities it serves in the foundation on which the DBDLI is set out to undertake its work. The community continues to engage with and support the Institute. I would like to thank the community for all that it has done and does for the DBDLI. To the current board and staff, I know you will be extremely busy throughout the year. The ability to multitask, to be creative, to challenge and collaborate with one another, to bring out the best in all is evident. Knowing that I am confident that through your work, you will continue to grow and expand the reach of the DBDLI. In closing, I am proud to have been part of the DBDLI. I will continue to be an advocate for the DBDLI and will support you in any way I can. All the best in the future. Regards, Jocelyn. As Jocelyn continues to pave the way for future leaders, I would like to announce that I will be taking her place. And I say taking her place, but I'm really not taking her place. Now, as the second chair of the DBDLI Board of Directors, while I could never replace her, nor would I even try to do that, I can certainly take the reins and draw from her experiences and expertise to guide me in this new role. That means she'll probably be hearing from me quite a bit. While we miss you dearly, we know that you will continue to fight for this community in every capacity, and you will always be a member of this family at the DBDLI. And I'll call on the CEO, Sylvia Paris Drummond, to bring her message.
Thank you, Randy. Hello, everyone, in our DBDLI building and out there in the virtual world. I echo the sentiment of a warm welcome to all to our report to the community 2021 via this virtual platform. I'm pleased to provide some highlights of our year under the umbrellas of two African proverbs. First, sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. While we were dealing with multiple pandemics, including anti-Black racism, as revealed by the death of George Floyd, staff and board teams acknowledged that they were first and always, in quotations, community, and needed space for strength and healing. They also acknowledged the privilege of being part of a Black-led, Black-mandated, and Black-serving organization, and embraced the opportunity to be present to provide support and programming for our community. I'm appreciative of them for bundling together to support each other and community. We drew upon technology and community collaboration while honoring COVID protocols along the way to deliver our programs. Through leadership from our youth department, we delivered the final in the series of 3 regional ancestral root summits. Through our research department, we surveyed youth and parents to ask, what's going well and what is needed to support your academic success and well-being? One of the findings we took up with earnest was the need for students to be able to express their feelings. We collaborated with regional centers of education to host Power of the Pen, Power of Digital Media, and African Nova Scotian Voices Speaking. We hosted youth conferences and workshops on topics ranging from addressing racial injustices to financial literacy. We came into view of individuals and organizations seeking opportunities to contribute, searching for learning resources on history and anti-racism, anti-Black racism, and expert advice to support their individual and organizational growth. This led to enhanced distribution of our print and non-print resource collections and requests to provide professional development for teachers, students, and the private sectors. We were also invited to take leadership roles at governance tables of various organizations. Also, we saw an increase in donations and engagement with the donor community. We are so appreciative of the recognition of our contribution to the public education system, support for community-facing learning, and the opportunity to apply our research and policy expertise to change minds, hearts, and impact institutional change. Under the umbrella of the proverb, until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. We drew upon social media as a vehicle for learning. Through Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, we hosted Did You Know? Teaching Tuesdays and African Heritage History Moments. We provided learning opportunities for post-secondary institutions on a national scale and participated in international learning. We continued the theme of excellence in education by working in collaboration with the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development to produce social studies resources for elementary and junior high schools across Nova Scotia. As a means of lifting up our community, we published My Grandmother's Days, the first in the historical African Nova Scotian community story series. As I said, this is just a sampling of some of the things that have happened, and you'll hear more in the detailed reports to follow. Thank you to the DBDLI board for its leadership and ongoing support. I was pleased to have the privilege to work with the inaugural board's chair, Jocelyn Dorrington, as we mentioned earlier. Her mentorship and leadership was and is very much appreciated. I want to acknowledge the staff team and thank them for continuing to lead with the philosophy of Ubuntu and the ideology of Afrocentricity. Thank you.
There goes my mask. Next, we will hear from our keynote speaker. She is well known in our community and needs no introduction, but her achievements deserve recognition. Dr. Késa Munroe-Anderson received her doctorate in educational studies from Mount St. Vincent University. She would go on to become the manager of race relations, equity, and inclusion for the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission, and would eventually land the director's role. Dr. Munroe-Anderson specializes in adult education, race relations, and human rights. She was recently the Deputy Minister for the Department of Communities, Culture, and Heritage, and she distinguished herself as the first Black woman to hold the role. She has been highly supportive of our organization and even volunteered to be our regular host for our Viola Desmond Community Talk series. If you haven't seen the series yet, you can find them on our website. And without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Késa Munroe-Anderson.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much to the Delmore Buddy Day Learning Institute, particularly to CEO Sylvia Harris-Drummond for this kind invitation to serve as keynote speaker tonight during your report to community. I am always honored to be called upon by the DBDLI to serve in any way, and tonight I want to express my deep appreciation for you bestowing upon me this very important duty. I am a woman most blessed because of my African Nova Scotian community. In 2018, I defended my PhD dissertation entitled Set Our Spirits Free, exploring the role of spirituality as an anti-oppressive agent in the formal education of African Nova Scotian learners. DBDLI, through your funding, you helped me to make that happen. And I am forever indebted to you for that investment into my life and my education. In that dissertation, I shared the metaphor of community as quilt. And though I believed it wholeheartedly then, today I feel it even more than ever before. I have been sheltered by the quilt of community love, community protection, prayers, encouragement, support, and knowledge. And I want you to know that it is because of this that I am able to reciprocate that same devotion, those same prayers, that love, protection, encouragement, and knowledge right back to you tonight. You are a beautiful reminder of why, as an African Nova Scotian community, we must remain focused on our people and our passion. I hope you don't mind it if I take us to church for a little bit, just for a moment tonight. But I want you to know that I feel like Esther, Queen Esther in the Bible, called to the kingdom for such a time as this. The kingdom that I'm talking about is the kingdom of our people and our passion. And much like the Bible prophet Jeremiah, I feel that there is a fire shut up in my bones. It is an inextinguishable fire. It is a passionate fire. It is the fire of my passion for our people. It is the same fire that I felt last June on Africville grounds during the prayerful protest in response to George Floyd's murder, when I reminded our people, this is our burning bush moment. Moses had his moment. Harriet Tubman had her moment. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had his moment. Dr. Carrie Best had her moment. Viola Desmond had her moment. Joan and Burnley Rocky Jones had their moment. Tonight, I admonish you and everyone under the sound of my voice to stay focused and don't miss your moment. Don't miss your moment. We must choose this day who we will serve. Will we serve self-interest, or will we serve and commit ourselves to our people and our passion? This is our burning bush moment. There is a fresh wind blowing, and it is fanning the flames of our people and our passion. We must not get distracted and miss it. It is imperative that we stay focused. Yes, DBDLI and other organizations have accomplished much, and we should be proud of our accomplishments. However, we must not take these accomplishments for granted. There comes a time in our lives and in the history of our organizations when we must ask ourselves the question, why are we here? What is our purpose? What are we doing? Why are we doing what we're doing? What is the impact? After the strategic plans and the action plans and the rebranding and revisioning, are we simply engaged in keeping busy doing make-work projects? Are we only going through the motions, checking the boxes of what our funders tell us that we're supposed to do? When we answer the question, who is going to gain from our actions, we must ensure that we can confidently respond, our people. Yes, African Nova Scotians will gain. Our passion. Yes, we will be reignited, refueled, and encouraged, and we will continue in spiritual self-determination. We must stay focused. We cannot afford to miss our now moment. Yes, indeed, there are times in our lives when we will all experience disruptions and distractions along the way, and our organizations are no exception. We will experience detours and abrupt off-ramps, and on-ramps will appear as if out of thin air. But we must remain steadfast and determined and committed to our goals, keeping the main thing. That is our people and our passion. Come what may, we must stay focused. The COVID-19 pandemic, for instance, threw us all for a loop. Who could have anticipated that life as we knew it prior to March 2020 would be no more? Those who are masters of the pivot, those with the resources to pivot, they survived. DBDLI, I applaud you as you did well during the pandemic. Others, not so much. However, my message to you is, tonight, it is not that we must pivot to something new, something strange and foreign to our ways of seeing the world and being in the world. Quite to the contrary, my message to you is that we must pivot back to the basics. We must go back to the old landmark, to our Afrocentric roots, our values and morals, the principles of our ancestors. We must return to the steadfastness of our relationships, the relationships one with one another. That is more precious than silver and gold. Our relationships matter. We must return to the times when no one in any African Nova Scotian community went without because we shared the little that we had and we made it stretch. We must return to unity with no room for division, to interconnectedness rather than competition, faith rather than individualism, respect for ourselves, for each other, for the rich legacies of our ancestors, respect for our descendants yet to be. We must be true to ourselves. We must stay focused. When we as African people are focused on our people and our passion, we will always succeed. That is because the Afrocentric definition of success is not dependent upon a position or a title. It is not even dependent on material wealth. It is not measured by amassed logical knowledge, but it is defined by values and demonstration of values that promote community well-being. Values that demonstrate that no individual stands alone. Each person is intricately connected to one's community, the past, the present, and the future. Spiritually, there is no separation, and we will always achieve success when we get that right. We must stay focused on our Afrocentric ways of being and doing. And we must wholeheartedly believe that our ways of being and doing, our perspectives, they are valid and they are just as important as anybody else's. When we believe in our people and our passion, we will not settle for mediocrity. We will not allow people, regardless of what they look like, to get away with manipulation and misuse of our people, our passion, and our communities. We will call them out and we will call them in as is appropriate. When we believe in our people and our passion, we will teach our children the difference between being Afrocentric and being Eurocentric. And our definition will be more than skin deep. We must teach our children Afrocentric values of respect, integrity, reciprocity, interdependence, community, Ubuntu, faith, family, and community. We are in the last few months of 2021. We are 3 years away from the end of the United Nations International Decade for the People of African Descent. And the decade's 3 pillars include 1, recognition, 2, development, and 3, justice. But all of this starts with our people, recognizing our people, developing our people, fighting for justice for our people. And DBDLI, I know that you have been doing that. But tonight, I want to challenge you to do and to be more. Why? Because if we wait on somebody else to do it for us, we'll be waiting for a long time. We must fight for our people. This fight, this passion is in us. It was passed on to us by our African ancestors who were warriors in the motherland and who lost children and fathers and mothers and family, community members, lost their own lives and their freedom, lost their languages and their culture, their names being stolen across the Middle Passage. These flames have been fanned by the recent injustices of our time. And we must stay focused on this fight. Yes, it is good to celebrate Emancipation Day and to have this day officially recognized in Nova Scotia and throughout Canada, as we did just last month. But it is best to see emancipation working itself out in all aspects of our daily lives. In society, we must be able to see and experience a constant and consistent working towards eradicating anti-Black racism altogether by fixing this centuries-old crisis that has threatened the health and well-being of African Nova Scotians throughout the 400+ years of our existence on this land. We must stay focused on justice for our people. We don't need to conform or transform or chameleonize ourselves into anyone else. We are not trying to fit the mold that is not ours, that we did not make for ourselves, define for ourselves, or design for ourselves. We know us. We know our people. We will stay focused on self-determination. We must stay focused on defining ourselves, speaking for ourselves, naming ourselves, and creating for ourselves, whether that is through programs, publishing, offering services that welcome our community to this space, and to other forms of leadership, Afrocentric leadership. We must benefit from studying us, speaking about us, developing us. Our passion must be valued as passion and not aggression, emotionalism, or hypersensitivity. Our passion must be validated as knowledge, effective knowledge, knowledge that is just as valid as rational, mind-centered knowledge, knowledge that resides in our bodies, in our spirits, in our hearts. It must not be disregarded or minimized or ignored as unimportant. Our passion must be valued as indomitable, tenacious, unsatiable passion. It is our passion, our spirits, our spirituality that gives us the will, the gall and the gumption and the unction to carry on in spite of the barriers, the blockades systematically placed in our way. Our passion is our spirituality, our power, our dynamism, the essence of who we are, our relationships, our creative life force, our faith in God. It is the way we express ourselves. It is dependent upon the collective. There is no passion without our people. For some of us, our work lacks passion because we have bought into the empty dream that has demanded that we separate ourselves from our work. But our passion is dependent on us being present. We must ensure that our passion and our people are inseparable. We must stay connected to our people. Ubuntu, I am because you are. A person is a person only because of other people. My existence is connected to yours and yours to mine. We are passionate about our people and we make no apologies for it. We are passionate about our people and our people are passionate about community, community development, community well-being, community education, formal, non-formal, informal, advancement, justice, and attaining well-deserved, long overdue recognition. We are passionate about thriving rather than simply surviving. We are passionate and we don't want just the cherry on top. We want the whole pie, toppings and all. We will not settle. Our passion will not allow us to settle. We are focused on excellence and community ownership and agency for ourselves and for our people. We will not tolerate the crumbs that fall from the table when we should own the bakery. After all, we toiled, we tilled the soil, and we planted the wheat and we made the flour and we kneaded the dough and baked the bread that is enjoyed by others. It is high time that we own the bakery, the wheat field, the flour factory, the bakery, and that we eat whatever kind of bread, whatever bread we want, the whole loaf of it, if we want it, when we want it. It is high time that our people, our community has the opportunity to bake our bread and eat it too. We will not tolerate mediocrity and ignorance when our ancestors believed in excellence. We deserve the best because we are the best and we come from the best. We will not think in terms of we can't. Our people will think and act in terms of we can and we will and we did. There, we showed you, it is done. Half the things they're telling us can't be done. The truth is that our ancestors so when they brought their knowledge to the world, oftentimes without the due recognition. We must resist internalized oppression, internalized racism that insists that we are less than our white dominant culture and that we must strive for what they define as excellence, what they define as passion, how they see our people. We must resist this kind of thinking. It is patriarchal, it is anti-Black racist, it is white supremacist, It is harmful. We must admit our intergenerational trauma, though, because we are not okay. Look at our education system. We are not okay. Look at our healthcare system. I'm sorry, but we are not okay. Our community infrastructure and development, Africville is still a park and a museum. We are not okay. Beachville is shrinking to the size of a postage stamp. People in Birchtown don't have clean drinking water. Upper Hammonds Plains is being pimped by undercover developers. The handprint of gentrification is all around the downtown Halifax. We are not okay. We are not okay when the very institutions designed to protect our rights violate them. We must cease from living in denial. We are not okay. Admission is the first step to recovery. But the good news is that resilience is in our DNA. When the systems, motivations, and structures put in place to subjugate us miraculously turn over a new leaf, telling us that they have now decided to include us, but they don't acknowledge our very existence or listen to us, we are not okay. No, we're not. We must refuse to be okay with what is happening to our people. Our passion must disallow us from compromising our own sanity for the sake of making the dominant culture feel comfortable and good. It is high time that we take care of ourselves because we cannot wait for others to validate our trauma and to extend a healing hand. Resilience is one thing, trauma is another thing. We as a people must emancipate our minds from thinking that if we admit to trauma, that means we are not resilient, that we are weak, and that if we admit to feeling hurt and harmed, and that if we appear to express anger and disappointment and discouragement, that we are giving away our power as humans. In fact, the opposite is true. We have pretended to not be hurting for too long, for so long that in some ways we have perpetuated the very inhumanity that they have perpetrated towards us. We have aided and abetted and participated in the narrative of the institution of Black people's inhumanity, which harkens back to the ideologies of enslavement, pitting African people as subhuman, animal-like. We will not be okay until all of us are okay. I connect my voice to the great voice of feminist educator and African Canadian politician Rosemary Brown, who said it best. Until all of us have made it, none of us have made it. We need that insatiable hunger and thirst for all of us to make it, not just for some of us. That includes those in North and East Preston, those in Cherrybrook and Halifax, those in Upper Hammonds Plains and Lake Loon, all of us. That includes Whitney Pear and Glace Bay, Jordantown, Digby, and Acaciaville. I said all of us. That includes Jelly Bean Square and Uniacke Square, Mulgrave Park, Lucasville, and Vale Road, and even the newly discovered African Nova Scotian community of Priestville. Tell somebody, all of us. Yarmouth and Birchtown, Tracadie and Sunnyvale, Truro, Annapolis Valley, and Windsor Plains. I said all of us. I will not be satisfied until all of us have made it. What about you? Will you settle? Will you settle? Or will you stay focused on the best for all, development for all, well-being for all, education for all? We must stay focused and engaged in our own movement as a people. And that means that we must listen to our people. DBDLI, it is wonderful to have the organization provide a report to the community on an annual basis. But it is also good to have the community report back to you as you do. We must listen actively, ensuring that we create a space for community voices, to have a voice that's not only to speak, but to be heard. Now I understand that there are some different definitions of the verb to listen. That can be confusing when the outcome is not what we expect the result of this action to be. Let me say it another way. We cannot purport to listen, then go on and do what we wanted to do anyway. We must listen with ears, minds, and hearts wide open. And we must determine our actions on what we heard from our people through the lens and the knowledge positioned in our passion. We must ask ourselves, when we are invited to the table, whose table is it anyway? Who built this table? And what materials did they use to build it? Did they use the materials of subjugation, dehumanization, paternalism, anti-Black racism, imperialism, and Eurocentricity? Ask yourself, whose table is it anyway? Is it truly a collective, inclusive, communal table where we all matter and where we will all sit equitably, non-hierarchically around it? Is it really our table or is it their table? If it's their table, they will invite us when they want to and turn around in a New York minute and uninvite us, removing our seat from their table. If it is their table, they will tell us where to sit and when to sit and how long to sit. If it is their table, they will tell us when to speak and how long to speak. At their table, we must ask their permission on when we can eat, if we can eat, what we can eat. Then they have the audacity to get up from the table, leave the dirty dishes and the leftover mess for guess who? Us to clean up. Here is when it becomes clear that oftentimes they only see us as the help. My friends in my community, if we are truly interested in our people and our passion, we will stay focused on building our own table. Tell somebody, let's build our table. Let's build our own table. We get to choose the dimensions of this table. We get to decide if we want to build it out of mahogany, cedar, or oak. We get to decide if we want it to be round, rectangular, square, oblong, triangular. All of our people must be welcome to our table, all of our people, all ages, from the cradle to our sacred elders. We must not leave anyone behind. And when we build it, not only will they come, but they will have a space at this table where they can truly belong in the fullness of their self-defined selves. I love the wisdom from the motherland, and there is a proverb that I cherish and I live by, and I wish to bring it to your attention tonight. If your vision is for a year, plant wheat. If your vision is for a decade, plant trees. And if your vision is for a lifetime, plant people. My question to you is, what are you planting? Are we planting temporary seeds which will harvest temporary results? Or are we investing our time, leadership, sponsorship, mentorship, programs, and finances for the development of our people towards the impact of a lifetime? Are we planting wheat to be served on the tables of people who continue to exercise the madness of excluding us? Are we planting trees only to have them cut down to build their tables? Or are we using our passion to plant and develop our people who can build a table of a lifetime for our people? I have one question for you. Will our children have a table? Will they have a table of their own? Or will they be made to endure the trauma of the same madness we are experiencing today? Will we build a table in preparation for them and the generations to come? Will we build people? Or will they still be like us, sitting on borrowed seats at somebody else's table? Our people, our passion. We must stay focused on building for our future. And finally, I am so inspired by Viola Desmond, African Nova Scotian entrepreneur, social justice activist, educator. She stood for excellence. She stood for what is right, not only for herself, but for all of us. She built us a table. And Black women came from across this country to sit at that table, a table where they would have shared ownership because of her. It was a table Viola Desmond defined. She developed our people by building a table. Our passion was her passion. And when she was arrested, although not vindicated in her lifetime, we, her people, are now benefiting from her labor, her wisdom, her tenacity. And some good has emerged from her trauma. Viola Desmond was focused. She was determined to make something out of nothing. She got her education and she did it. She did not forget about her people. We were her passion. Until all of us have made it, none of us have made it. Let us pattern our steps, our actions after Viola Desmond. And we must stay focused on our people and our passion. Stay focused. Don't miss your moment. Thank you.
I don't know how I'm supposed to go after that. Who are we? Who am I? Why do I have to explain myself for you to accept me? Shall I break myself into little acceptable pieces good enough for your palate? Ta-Nehisi Coates said, and I saw that what divided me from the world was not anything intrinsic to us, but the actual injury done by people intent on naming us, intent on believing that what they have named us matters more than anything we could ever actually do. The story of us, scrap that, the story of me. Muslim, Nigerian, West African, African. Privileged yet underprivileged, independent yet dependent. I stand in this space and time, too alien for here and too alien for home. The taste of something that I have lost still lingers on my tongue. What have I lost, you ask? The ability to ask for more without feeling guilty or ungrateful. Don't involve yourself in issues that threaten your presence. Don't make waves. Shh, don't make noise. Be quiet. Be grateful you are allowed in. Be grateful that you're part of the chosen few. Hold on, keep holding on. Who am I? A long line of strong, beautiful humans. My ancestors go before me. They give air to my wings. I rarely ever am just me. The weight of my community is on my shoulders. Representative, spokesperson. In between, double consciousness. The paradox of belonging and non-belonging. I call it the inside from outside, inside out from outside. A wavering world I thrive in, moving across spaces, but not in a vacuum. Movement comes with code switching. Code switching, our brain's inadvertent way of helping us fit in. An attribute I need these days to survive. Look around you. Look. Notice the little things, the ones you have silenced because words fall off their tongues differently. In this space, where it is a shock to my system when a person is a distant human, because distant humans are hard to come by. Oh, how dated I have become. You have greatly added to my worldview. However, you have taken so much from me. I'm going to read a new piece that I've been working on, so please be very, very gentle with me. I don't want to be the first. I want to know that my ancestors have walked these halls. I don't want to be the first. The burden of being the first seems like it would overwhelm. I don't want to be the first, as the idea of being the first says something about the brokenness of our society. But alas, I am the first. And I know that my ancestors trod this path that I walk on, and I stand on their shoulders. Alas, I am the first. Watering the plants on the path, so more like me would bask in the shade of the trees and the fragrance of the flowers. So I ask, am I really the first? Thank you.
Thank you, Timi, and for Késa as well. You know, when what was his name? James Baldwin wrote "The Fire Next Time." It felt like Késa was bringing that fire for us this time. So, you know, so yes. Right. So the fire, this fire is here right now, right? I encourage you to, if you haven't soaked in everything you've heard for the past few moments, I believe it's still on recording, so you will be able to listen it again and again and again. But don't let that fire go out. The flame is being fanned. So I encourage you to take those examples that were shared, the experiences that were shared, and the encouragement that were shared, and pay close attention to them. Now, the most important part of this evening is now. You're here to listen to the reports. We've created an atmosphere to allow you to get to this point where you pay close attention to what we intend to share tonight. And as I've said earlier, if you haven't had a chance to read the reports, it is available online at www.dbdli.ca. You can follow through visiting online, or maybe just if you have a hard copy, you can follow as the various chairs share a snapshot of the report at this moment. I'll introduce the first presenter, and we will save all of our questions for the last. And after the 6 presenters have shared, please type your questions in the chat room, and we will have them all here to answer your questions. So tonight, James McInerney will present a finance and audit report for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Boy, that was powerful, those last 2 presenters. But unfortunately, I now have to take you through numbers. My name is James McInerney, and I'm the Finance Committee Chair. I won't take too much of your time because after that, those last 2, I'm sure you don't want to be sat here listening to numbers. My full report, along with the audited financial statements, you can find in the package that was distributed or circulated before this event. However, I'll touch on a few key notes that you'll also find in the 2 documents. The first thing is some of the changes that occurred during the course of the year within the finance department of DBDLI. We hired a new finance manager because our former finance officer, Victoria Lake, moved on to new challenges. I want to take this chance to thank Victoria for all her years of services, as well as welcome McEdward Jones into the team. He brings a wealth of experience, and we look forward to working with him. Just some of the financial highlights. I won't get too deep into it. You can find the full audited financial statements on page 17 of the package that went out. One of the key things that you'll see in those statements is that our revenues went up by 25%. And that's largely in part to the great work of the staff, who were able to obtain additional grants to cover the 21% increase that you'll see in our financial statements for the year 2020-21. So with that, I'd like to take this chance to thank the staff for the great work they've done in ensuring that we had the financial support sufficient to cover our objectives. And I also want to take this opportunity to acknowledge our auditors, PwC, for their work in completing the 2021 financial statements. I think with all the changes that occurred, that was more of a challenge than it typically is. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our main contributor, the province of Nova Scotia, who contribute about 70%, 75% of our overall revenue. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to our chair of the HR committee, Gilbert Daye, to walk you through the HR report.
Thank you, James. And thank you, Sister Timi, and especially thank you, Sister Munroe-Anderson. Very inspiring and exciting and fire-laden talk that we need at this time. Over the past few years of the pandemic, the community, like the rest of the world, has been in a laid-back mode and not on top. But we do need, as you say, to accept your challenge of doing more. And we need to encourage the communities to accept your challenge of doing more. And by doing more, we talk about becoming more capable and becoming more involved and becoming more passionate, as you say. So thanks again for very inspiring words. I'm pleased to submit to you the 2021 annual report of the DBDLI Human Resources Committee. This committee consisted of 3 members: myself, Sister Jocelyn Dorrington, who you've heard from earlier, and of course, Brother Randy Hadley. The focus of this committee's work since the previous AGM has been on reviewing and revising the organization's Human Resources Manual, addressing changes in staffing, and addressing internal staff relations issues. The committee oversaw a contract awarded to a consultant in the previous fiscal year to review, revise, and update the Human Resources Manual. This manual is the working document which provides the organization's direction, oversight, and Afrocentric relevance to the day-to-day staff relationships. The consultant was tasked with making recommendations to the board of directors on how to achieve consistency with the HR-related policies and governance documents of the DBDLI, how and where to include Afrocentric relevance throughout the documents, compliance with relevant laws, statutes, and regulations, and improving processes for efficiency. The board approved the revised Human Resources Manual with the intent to keep it as a fluid document, which will need to evolve and be revised as the organization grows. A number of staffing changes occurred through this reporting period. The finance officer and youth coordinator both left the organization to take advantage of career opportunities. The administrative position was vacated, and the publishing contract no longer received support from the funder, resulting in the loss of another longtime staff person. And of course, during this period of COVID-19 related uncertainty, the HR committee was somewhat handcuffed in terms of going ahead with the organization's long-term plans. So the HR committee recommended that the organization put a priority on filling the finance officer's position with a new manager of finance, which was referred to by the previous speaker. Consultants are currently engaged to bring the DBDLI through a process of which to better identify the staffing needs related. Apparently, of course, this report was written some time ago, but I can let you know that consultant's work has been completed. A staff review has been recommended to take place prior to filling other long-term positions, but at this particular point, the youth programming officer position is in the progress, as well as an additional research position in process. So with regard to the internal staff relations issues, the HR committee provided input and analysis of staffing situations addressed by the CEO. This type of reporting isn't as exciting, and this, of course, this kind of work isn't as exciting as some of the previous speakers, or at least our keynote speaker had alluded to. But just to say that all work is important and everything needs to be done as diligently, regardless of how sexy it is. But I enjoy working in the capacity as the chair of the HR committee and on this board of directors on a number of different issues. And I encourage all watching to get involved with the community and become passionate about the issues that are facing our youth. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Susie Brigham, and I'm going to share with you an exciting report. It's on the communications, and Missy Searle is the chair of the communications report of the communications committee, but she's not able to be here tonight, so I get that pleasure. And as you can expect, that this committee, its main goal is to share our vision and support the promotion and celebration of all of our programs and initiatives. And so despite COVID-19 pandemic, which we've been talking about, we were able to continue to virtually grow our presence within the community and beyond. And we were able to do this through a variety of activities and events that I want to share a little bit about with you. But one of the exciting things too is the sale of our resources. It's remained very strong, and there are school boards around the country that are using our resources. They rely on them as a critical part of the curriculum. In particular, the Black History, which is Africa, the Caribbean, and the Americas textbook, it's been a top seller. So that's really exciting that we are on the map for that book. And also the Times of African Nova Scotians, volume 1 and 2, that's been the second top seller. And then the ABCs of Viola Desmond, which you, I hope, have had an opportunity to see, is also a very strong seller. So there's obviously a very strong interest in these resources, and it's very encouraging to see how much people are relying on the DBDLI resources. And we're hoping to add some more resources in the next fiscal year. So we're very excited about that. Another very exciting thing I wanted to share with you is about this 3-part docu-series, which was about the legacy of Viola Desmond. And 2 episodes have already been aired on Eastlink TV, and they were hosted on YouTube as well. Also, the goal was not just to educate about Viola Desmond, but it was to inspire the audiences and to help us understand who Viola was, to give a broader picture of her. She wasn't just an activist that stood up for what was right, but she was also a teacher, an entrepreneur, and a beautician and a feminist. And she gave back to her community. And those stories were shared also with the help of former Lieutenant Governor, Her Honor, Dr. Mayan Francis, former Minister of African Nova Scotian Affairs, the Honorable Percy Paris, and local business owner and award winner, Samantha Dixon. And we were always so grateful for Dr. Késa Munroe-Anderson, who hosted the series. Now, the African Heritage Month, we recognized a lot of influential people in our community, and we highlighted a variety of different events and Afrocentric worldviews and much more. Also, despite the pandemic, we received a large number of submissions for the African Nova Scotian History Challenges. And this is really, really encouraging to us because it really shows that these challenges are very much resonating with many schools and communities across the province. Another thing I wanted to add was about donations. We have received a significant number of donations, over $25,000 that came through Canada Help. And so we really want to thank all of those who donated to us, especially those who donate on an ongoing basis to the Institute. And so our traditional media relations efforts really garnered strong coverage over this past year. And we want to continue to capitalize on the radio, television, print, and all the stories we are able to communicate with and connect with our communities. And next fiscal year, we'll certainly will be working on a podcast, which will be coming up soon, a magazine, which is called The Lion, we are creating. And we're hoping to, well, we've already hosted the Afrocentric Conference, which I hope you were able to hear about and learn from. So on behalf of the committee and of course to the staff and CEO, I want to thank you for the support to the Communications Committee throughout this past year. And I want to introduce you to Marcus Marsman, who is the co-chair of the Youth and Initiative Committee, and he's going to give you a brief report on the Youth and Initiatives.
I'm pleased to submit the second annual report of the Youth and Initiatives Committee. The committee members of the last fiscal year were Jennifer Desmond, Nicole Morrison, Missy Searle, and the co-chairs were Gilbert Daye and I, and former DBDLI board chair Jocelyn Dorrington. Through the last fiscal year, the activities of the DBDLI have been affected by the emergence of the COVID-19 virus and ensuing restrictions. The Youth and Initiatives Committees remains firmly committed to contributing to initiatives despite pandemic-related impediments to our programming. The primary focus of this committee over this year has been on the Youth Council. The Youth Advisory Council was established in 2019 with a mandate to support the board of directors on their strategic planning objectives and on programming initiatives for young learners of African ancestry. Newly appointed members of the council struggled over their desire to contribute to DBDLI's operations and policymaking, as well as their ability to reach youth in all areas of the province. To address these concerns, the Youth and Initiatives Committee reviewed and revised our manual and led discussions with the board of directors on practical roles the council can perform at the board, staff, and community levels. We also deliberated on how to advance the effectiveness of our youth initiatives. The DBDLI is in the process of replacing the youth coordinator who left the organization earlier this year to pursue other professional opportunities. Once the staff position is filled, youth council members will have the opportunity to pick up where they left off to develop projects with provincial reach for youth, young adults, and communities. Next, I'd like to introduce Tony Kaliakovo to present the Publishing and Special Projects Report.
Hello, everyone. And I echo Susie's comments about and Gilbert's comments about the very inspiring message from Dr. Késa. Despite the pandemic, it's been a remarkable year for the Publishing and Special Projects team. The pandemic has had an impact on everyone, everywhere. And like all publishers, the DBDLI has had to find creative and innovative ways to survive and do business during what are unprecedented times. And perhaps counterintuitively, this past year has been our best year for book sales, for publishing new titles, and for accessing publishing grants. We also had, as Susie said, record participation to this year's annual African Nova Scotian History Challenges. You can find the details on most of these things in the report, but I would like to highlight quite a few of them. Since their inception, the African Nova Scotian History Challenges have seen a steady increase in participation. But this year, the number of participating schools far exceeded our expectations. At the launch of the challenges in September, we worked hard to ensure that all the teachers and students had digital access to the rules, the challenges, and the entry forms. And the response was fantastic. We had entries from over 80 schools from every region of the province and from every grade level. This was an increase of almost over 40% from last year. And this was the 15th year for the history challenges. So there are several factors that make the challenges a success. Winning a challenge award now has become a very prestigious thing. Submissions to the challenges can be made in either official language. They offer creative learning opportunities for students of all abilities. They provide teachers with a ready-made teaching plan. And the DBDLI History Awards ceremony has become an important event on the school calendar. This year's increased participation from the grade 6s and grade 7s may also be due to the inclusion of the African Nova Scotian history in the revamped social studies curriculum, which the Institute, by the way, has had a huge impact on influencing. The award ceremony can be viewed online, and as well as some of the submissions. I urge you to have a look at them. They really, truly are some phenomenal work. Book sales. Again, counterintuitively, you would think that with schools being closed and so on, our book sales would have taken a dive. But as Susie alluded to, particularly our teacher or our grade 11 resource, Black History, Africa, the Caribbean, and the Americas, has seen a real uptick in sales in Ontario. It's undeniable that there's been increased global awareness of issues pertaining to people of African descent. More and more teachers in Ontario are interested in and motivated to teach Black history. And one of the things that we did at the beginning of the pandemic was to make the teacher's guide to the textbook available free of charge. In Nova Scotia, we made it available free of charge so that teachers could have ready-made lesson plans. In Ontario, it actually worked as a marketing ploy because you can use the guide, but you can use the textbook without the guide, but you can't use the guide without the textbook. So after getting the guide, it spurred sales of the textbook. Another interesting thing regarding the textbook, we now have digital access to the textbook. And the reason that we initiated the digital platform was due to an interesting development. We had an awful lot of interest from the Caribbean about the textbook. One of the hurdles that we had is getting the physical textbook to the client. Just as a small example, it costs $145 to ship one of our textbooks to St. Kitts. So allowing for digital access to the textbook really opened up a whole other market segment for us. What we're seeing now too here at home is the use of the digital access to the textbook for students that can't use the textbook but need to use it digitally. So it's been a real revenue winner for us. The digital platform is up and running. And of course, there are other hidden benefits to having the textbook available digitally because you are essentially selling it on a subscription basis. The other success that we had with book sales with existing titles was the French edition of the Viola Desmond book, L'Alphabet de Viola Desmond. We had, it's our first French title, and we had significant sales in New Brunswick and Quebec. In terms of new books, you know, one of the visions of the DBDLI a few years ago was to produce resources that taught African Nova Scotian history and that our children could see themselves reflected in these resources. As of today, the DBDLI has developed and published curriculum resources for 5 different grades in Nova Scotia. We have a grade 3 guided reading book, The ABCs of Viola Desmond. Last year, we introduced, in cooperation with the Department of Education, the grade 6 social studies resource. Nova Scotia's history is all of our history, it's titled. The grade 7 social studies book is actually a huge win for us because this resource was put out to public tender. The DBDLI formed a consortium of other publishers in the province, and we won the tender. The resource is finished. It's called Resistance and Resilience, the series. And I foresee it being a very valuable and important tool for the grade 7 classes. It's made up of a series of books, 8 different books, and it also includes something called a discovery kit, which is a box of artifacts that children can actually handle and guess and try to place in a historical context. So it's exciting. All of these resources, by the way, are available through the Nova Scotia School Book website, Nova Scotia School Book Bureau website. They've all been approved as learning resources, and I think that speaks to the success that we've had in fulfilling that part of our mandate. 5 years is not a long time to go from no resources to standard resources in 5 different grade levels. So I think that is something that the Institute could take a lot of pride in. Susie mentioned My Grandmother's Days. It's a little book about Lucasville, written by the late Miss Viola Parsons, and it's positioned for junior high readers, and it is really so interesting because it gives a first-hand account of what life was like back in the day. We actually have the second in the series about the community of East Preston now in production. So you'll be hearing more about that one as in the coming days. I don't know if anybody here has seen, but we did a children's book called Q is for Quarantine. And again, it's both timely, but also we noticed that there wasn't very much in terms of literature to the communities, particularly children, about the pandemic. So it's been popular, and I think it's, again, it speaks to how well we can pivot to meet the needs of the community. Lastly, I'll just mention grants. I know that it's been touched on. We've been very successful in accessing publishing grants. And as we get better at publishing and as our reputation grows, so too does our ability to access these grants. It's very important. Again, you can get details of all of these and some of our other initiatives in the report. But I think I've been warned 3 minutes, and I see eyebrows raised already. I think Susie is going to come up and give the research report now. So thank you, and I'll take questions later.
Thank you, Mr. Colavacchio. And I get to deliver to you the last report of the evening, and I'll try to make it short and sweet. It's also very interesting, so you'll want to pay attention to this report. And as Mr. Colavacchio was saying about grants, that's something I'm going to talk about in my report in terms of research initiatives. I'm the chair of the research committee. And so I'll be telling you a little bit about how successful DBDLI has been in terms of getting grants and working with partners in terms of doing research. So of course, everyone's been talking about the state of emergency, the pandemic, and of course that had a huge effect on how we conducted our research. And for example, we had to pivot to data collecting that was done through distance learning or virtual mechanisms. And we also were able to disseminate some of our findings through virtual community activities and events and conferences, and through peer-reviewed articles as well. So I want to share with you a little bit about some of these grants and how the research has proceeded. So one of the research projects we've been doing is called Ubuntu Pedagogy of the Community. And this is something that was funded by the Inter-University Research Network. And it explores the role of elders in developing frameworks for teaching and strategies for schools that can benefit Black students. And so that data collecting has been complete, and we are now in the analysis stage. Another large research project was funded by SSHRC, and it was called the African Nova Scotian COVID-19 Education Support Survey. And what was found there was that there's a disturbing picture actually of Black learners who are on individual program plans, and which is about half of the Black learners. The cultural academic enrichment program seems to be a very popular resource, and it needs to be further resourced. And so we intend to develop some special reports about the IPP and the CAEP programs. Now, MyTax has supported two of our postdoc fellows. So one of them is called, one of the research focus is on evidence-driven strategies for successful schooling outcomes of learners of African descent in Nova Scotia. And the intern is Ravi Kadam, and Ravi is working with SMU and DAL. Another one is called It Takes a Village, investigating the scaffolding strategies of writing development employed by African Nova Scotian communities to support early literacy development. And Sylvia Chanda Kalindi is the intern at Mount St. Vincent University. Another project I wanted to tell you about is developing data systems for evidence-based policy-making implementation. And it's a study of the Nova Scotian student attendance and engagement policy. And that has been done with Professor Jolyn McCanny of Dalhousie University. Another project is in partnership with Professor George Safadeh at the University of Toronto called Using Elders, the Educational Experiences of Black Communities. Another project, which we are partnering with the African Nova Scotian Canadian Services Branch, Promising Schools, and it's called Using Data to Track Promising Educational Experiences of African Nova Scotian Students. I also wanted to share with you the successful BESH symposium that we held in March of 2021. And that main objective of that symposium is to elevate and make visible, celebrate and connect Black Canadians in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and medicine across all sectors. And in case you didn't know, we also have an academic journal. It's an international journal. And so we are now accepting research papers for this journal's very first issue. Yeah, that's exciting. And then we'll just quickly wrap up with a mention about the Janine DeVoe Afrocentric Research Extraordinaire Fellow. And you may have seen on our website that we had Dr. George Daye gave the inaugural DeVoe DBDLI lecture, and it was called Decolonizing Education, Implications for Nova Scotia Inclusive Education Policy. And it was held in December of 2020. And over 100 people attended. And again, we had to do this in virtual mode through Zoom. And the slides and such are available for you to see if you weren't able to attend that online. And one other quick thing I wanted to mention is that we did partner also with the Center for Integrative Anti-Racism Studies. And we had several webinars on anti-racism in education. And so, yeah, I really wanted to thank the committee members and of course, the staff, Dr. George Frempong and Sylvia Paris-Drummond, Chief Executive Officer, and all the other staff who helped to make the research aspects so very, very successful. At this point, we're going to open up for questions. And so I invite the chairs of various committees to return back up here. And then if we have any questions, we will take them now. Oh, if there's no questions, that's fine too. Not yet. Go ahead. If there are any questions, then we'll go to that.
Thank you, Susie, and thank you, chairs. At this point, if there are any questions, you can still submit your questions through the online platform. And if we're not able to answer those questions right now, at some point, we promise we will answer your questions. But I'm so happy to hear the reports tonight, and it's obvious that the DBDLI is doing good in the community, and we're not going to stop there. It's evident that more work is needed, and we are prepared to continue this good work. We're still looking for those who are able to contribute as well. So if you're passionate about the work we're doing and are willing to participate, please do pick up the pen or hop online and submit the application to participate with us. We can work together and we can accomplish a whole lot when we do it together. Okay. I believe there's one question.
Okay, so we have a question from Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard. And she's wondering about the publishing budget with all the successful publishing being reported.
Okay, a question for our publisher, our publishing chair.
She's wondering why the budget was cut.
Oh.
Right, I'm just going to repeat Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard's question. She's wondering.
Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard is wondering about budget cuts with all the successful publishing that's being reported tonight. And we have Sylvia here, our CEO, who's going to answer that.
Thank you. I appreciate the question. And so to contextualize it, up until this current budget discussions with the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development, who are one of our key funders, we would have had a budget line and working with them for publications. So publications that would be able to be utilized in the public school system. And we would always be making a case for publications that we could develop for the community. So this year, we understood that there is a new process happening within the government that did not allow the education, specifically to African Canadian Services branch, to be able to collaborate with us to develop funding, a budget line for resources. So I appreciate the question, and it's an opportunity, I think, for us to think about from what we heard, particularly in our keynote message, to answer what it is we think is important, and then how do we kind of collaborate together to respond to that important component of the work that we were supported to do previously, which is develop resources collaboratively together to have in our public school system. And Tony, were you going to come and make further comments?
Yes, I would like to.
Thank you, Sylvia.
I'd just like to add to that, please.
Absolutely.
So just because the budget line got cut, doesn't mean that the DBDLI is not going to publish. We're working hard and have worked hard to establish alternative sources to develop publications, grants, so on. Of course, it makes it a lot harder. We have to be way more selective in what we can do. But it's so important to develop these books. And I don't mean just curriculum books either. I mean all kinds of books. So I think, yeah, I don't think you've seen the end of our publishing initiatives. Understand there's another question relating to publishing?
All right, so we have a question from Elizabeth here. She asks, what efforts are being made to reach the communities outside of the HRM to share information and resources available? Congratulations on the great works.
Oh, thank you. So to answer your question, we of course have our website that not only lists our current publications, but any initiatives that we have in the works. It's no secret that we invite submissions from all communities for consideration in terms of publishing. We would like to publish everything that we get, every manuscript we'd like to develop. Obviously, that's not possible, but we are very interested in developing, new materials, new books, new resources. And I encourage anybody that is watching or that is interested to come forward and we'll cooperatively find sources to make sure that some of these books can get published. Yeah.
Thank you, Tony. And thank you for those two questions. I'll just reflect on the keynote speaker's presentation that says that if one of us or if one community isn't okay, then we all should feel uncomfortable. And I hope in the next few years, as we continue to plan to indeed reach the entire Nova Scotia, that we will remain uncomfortable until every corner of Nova Scotia that house people of African descent feels as though they are part of this work that we're doing. We will continue to sit with those like-minded organizations who were intended to reach those who are in the far-reaching areas and continue to support them in whatever way is possible. Now, this next item on this agenda, I love to do it, but I hate to do it at the same time. It is to give a plaque away to one of our past board members. It's nice to give things away, but the person I'm handing this out to is the person that actually invited me to the DBDLI and encouraged me to be here. So although I want to give her this, I want to keep it as well. Not for myself, but to keep it for later. It is for Dr. Susie Brigham, and she has been here with the DBDLI from its inception. And although she has resigned, it feels as though she has never left. We can still call on her for support. Case in point tonight. And she's acting in a capacity as a regular board member, so she's not left us. And I'm happy to hand this plaque to her. And it reads, in recognition presented to Susie Brigham in recognition and appreciation. The Delmore Body Day Learning Institute wishes to, oh, I need to show you. The Delmore Body Day Learning Institute wishes to express our appreciation for your leadership, guidance, and commitment as a board member of the DBDLI from 2012 to 2021 for creating a better education system for learners of African ancestry. Your work has created pathways for future generations. It takes a village to raise a child.
Thank you so much. That's lovely. I'm asked often to say thank you so much. I really appreciate this and love the sentiment and the words on this plaque. So thanks, Randy. I'm so glad you took me up on the offer to join the board, because now look at you. Chair, it's pretty exciting. So thank you so much.
All on James to bring the closing remarks for tonight.
Okay, so I've been asked to do the closing remarks. Before I do that, I just wanted to wrap up some of the things we've talked about today. So to conclude, I'd like to take a moment just to reflect on what's happened in the past year. First of all, early on in the year, we had the pandemic happen, and which significantly impacted our lives. Families endured losses of loved ones, and companies faced foreclosures, and people lost their jobs. We experienced a state of emergency and lockdowns, and healthcare workers continued delivering within these harsh conditions, as well as essential workers who continued working, jeopardizing their health, so we could still access our daily essential needs. The world also watched in horror as George Floyd laid on the pavement begging for his life, telling the police officer who was kneeling on his neck that he could not breathe, slowly diminishing his life, while bystanders begged for his life, unable to help. This led to the uprising of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so across the globe, from North America to Africa and beyond, people both young and old of various ethnicities came together to protest and march for the human cause of injustices and inequality and the systemic racisms that have occurred that have continued to exist throughout the world. As a result, some of the larger corporations and governments began to reevaluate their practices and started implementing more inclusive policies. Those who did not understand Black Lives Matter movements started to ask for further explanation as to how they can contribute and change some of their biases. And so during the course of the year, we endured many trials and tribulations. And through it all, the struggle will continue. As the theme of our report to the community reflects, our people, passion. I'd like to take this time to thank you all for taking the time to join us. So stay safe and stay passionate. Thank you, and send Kofa.